Hi guys, and welcome to this video on factors and multiples. So let's kick off by considering the factors of 12 and also the multiples of 12. This is useful so that we can see the differences between them, because one of the most common exam mistakes is to get the two of them mixed up in an exam. Okay, so when we come to factors of a number, these are numbers which will divide into my given number here, which is 12. So numbers which will divide into it are 1 and 12, and that's true of every single number. And remember, if it's just these two, then your number is a prime number because it's got exactly two factors. But I think 12's got a couple more, so I can also divide it by 2. I can also divide it by 6. I can also divide it by 3, and I can also divide it by 4. The reason why I did my factors in this way is because it sometimes helps just to consider how these numbers pair up with one another. So for example, 12 divided by 1 is 12, 12 divided by 12 is 1, 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 12 divided by 6 is 2, and also 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. So these factors pair up typically. Not in every single case. If your number is a square number, then you won't end up with a paired number of factors. You'll just have one on its own. That's something else that's important for us to know. But just to make sure that I don't miss any of the factors, I tend to start at the beginning and at the end, and then actually work my way inwards. At some point, I will meet myself in the middle, and that's how I know that I've got all of the factors exhausted. In terms of multiples then, you actually know all of these. They were some of the first number sequences that you were ever taught in maths lessons way back in primary school. Multiples are all to do with the times tables of 12. So multiples of 12, I physically can't write them all out because there are an infinite number of multiples of 12. So I'm just going to start with the first 5. The first multiple of 12 is 12 times 1, which is 12. The next multiple of 12 is 24. The next multiple of 12 is 36. The fourth multiple of 12 is 48. And to finish us off, the fifth multiple of 12 is 60. Okay, so in this example, we're going to focus just on factors. So we're going to start off by writing down all of the factors of 24. So same as before, I'm going to kind of start at the beginning and the end and work my way inwards. So I can divide 24 by 1, and that's 24. I can divide 24 by 2, and that gives me 12. I can divide 24 by 3, and that gives me 8. I can divide 24 by 4, and that gives me 6. And the only number I've got left to check now is 5, and 24 won't divide by 5 with no remainders left over. So they are all the factors of 24. Factors of 16 I'm going to do in a similar way. So 1 and 16. I can divide it by 2, and that gives me 8. I can't divide it by 3. I can divide it by 4, and that gives me 4. So previously I talked about how in some cases some of these won't actually pair up, and this is a good example. 16 is a square number, and it's made by 4 times 4, otherwise known as 4 squared. So square numbers are the only type of numbers where you will end up with an odd number of factors, and that's created by the square number sat in the middle. Okay, final part of this question then. What is the highest common factor of 24 and 16? Well, we can see that they've got a number of what I would call common factors. 1, 2, 4, 8 is also common, but we're interested in the highest one. So the highest common factor of 24 and 16 in this case is 8. Here's one of those for you guys to have a go at. Pause the video here, hit play when you're ready to see me talk you through the answers. Okay, so the factors of 30, starting at beginning and end again, you've got 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 is not a factor of 30, but 5 is, as is 6. And because I've sort of met in the middle, I know that I've found all of the factor pairs. What you might just want to do is make sure that these are separated with a comma so that you don't accidentally see a 56 or a 35 in there if you've run out of space. Next one, all of the factors of 12, so 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and let's drop a comma in there. 3 is also a factor, as is 4, and that's finished off my factor pairs. Let me just pop a comma into there. The highest common factor of 30 and 12, Well, hopefully you can see that that is 6. It's the biggest number in both lists of factors. Okay, moving on to multiples. So remember, these things are times tables effectively. So the first 5 multiples of 8, dead simple, 8, and people sometimes forget that the first multiple is the number itself, but this comes from 8 times 1, and then 16, remember this is 8 times 2, and 24, and 32, 40. So these are the first 5 multiples. The first 5 multiples of 10 are going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And remember, there are more of them, but we're not going to have time to write them all out because we would be here for a pretty long time. What is the lowest common multiple of 8 and 10? So similar to when we did highest common factor, we're after numbers in both lists, but this time we're interested in the lowest one, and we can see that the lowest common multiple here is 40. Here's one of those for you guys to have a go at yourselves. Pause the video here, hit play when you're ready to see what the answer looks like. Okay, so the first 5 multiples are 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30. The first 5 multiples of 5 are 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. If I'm after the lowest common multiple of 6 and 5, now in this example, it's interesting to note that I don't actually get any common multiples. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't any. So let's just take this example here and carry this one on a little bit. So 30, 35, 40, 45. And if I needed to, I can carry this one on a little bit as well. 36, 42, 48. And we know that those two lists continue. Now, I can see that 30 is the lowest number in both lists. It's not the only one. If I carried these on, for example, 60, 240, 480 would be in both lists, but 30 is the lowest common multiple. Okay, so just to recap on these then, factors are numbers which divide exactly into another given number. For example, 6 is a factor of 12 because it divides into it exactly with nothing left over as an integer. Multiples are the opposite. Multiples are numbers made when a given number is multiplied by another number. And again, these are basically your times tables. You need to make sure you know both of these carefully and the differences between them. Very easy to get the two mixed up. And remember with this one, multiples do what they say on the tin. They're all to do with multiplication, i.e. your times tables. So factors must be the other one, is how I remember it. So that's how I know that factors are division. Right guys, hopefully that video was helpful for you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you next time.